My biggest piece of advice to anyone starting a business, the first person you call is an accountant. You have to learn how to set up the, legal structure of the business, depending on the type of corporation you want it to be, or if you want it to be, an individual practice of some sort. Those are all key things. And then accountants know everyone, everything from your insurance brokers to your web and tech developers. I mean, they've got it all.
Welcome to Begin, Build, Blossom, Your Business Journey, the podcast where we share valuable insights, resources, and motivation to fuel your entrepreneurial spirit. Let's build a supportive community together. Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to podcasts and be part of this journey. Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication, but does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you, whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website www.cmeaccountingllc.com or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Begin, Build, Blossom, Your Business Journey. Today's guest is someone with a deep love and appreciation for music, the Bronx, and education. We're joined by Philip Kwoka, president and founder of the Bronx School for Music. Philip is a Polish-American pianist who began his studies right here in New York and went on to train at some of the most prestigious institutions in the country, including the Cleveland Institute of Music and the Bronx School of Music. Along the way, he studied with world-renowned teachers, performed on NPR's From the Top, earned first prizes in multiple international competitions, and he's received numerous grants and scholarships. Now, he's extending those same kinds of opportunities to students through his school. In this episode, we get to learn more about Philip's business journey. Welcome, Philip, and thank you for hosting us here in your beautiful school that feels like a home to me. So I feel very comfortable, and I'm just so happy that you have us here today.
I'm also really happy to have you here and really excited to, go along this journey with you here.
Yes, thank you. And I found out about your school when I was looking for somewhere for my daughter. At the time she was 4. I wanted somewhere for her to be able to engage in the things that she loves. She absolutely loves music. This child will move without music. That's how much she loves music. So when I was looking, I looked online and I found your school, and I couldn't believe that it was here in the Bronx. I am actually fairly new to New York. So for me, it was great to be able to be here and be able to get access to such amazing place and people. So thanks for making that available to us.
Well, that was precisely the whole point of, why I started this. And it's quite amazing. New York seemingly has everything in it, but the Bronx is actually a place that historically has been, underserved, and that people have just been wary of coming into and investing in. So everyone always asked me in the beginning when I was laying the foundation for the school, why did you choose the Bronx? Why did you choose the Bronx? Why didn't you do it in Manhattan or in Brooklyn or Queens? And I was like, they have everything over there already. We're the only sole and independent music school in the Bronx that has its own facility, open 7 days a week. So, and with our core focus being on music. So that was really, a big important consideration to make. And, it thrills me to hear that, you were able to find us and that we're able to provide this opportunity for you and your daughter.
Yes. And what has the reception been like since you've been here?
Oh, it's been a journey for sure. The reception has been incredible. starting our 5th year of operations. We ended our previous school year with 273 students enrolled across all of our programs. And if you told me 5 years ago that at this point we would have, 25 employees and 273 students working for the school, I would have not believed you,
Wow, that's amazing. And I know when I come to the events here in the backyard, I see such a community here. I feel it. My daughter and I feel like we're visiting family. So it's an amazing experience. So we'll get into it some more.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and do our rapid fire segment.
Okay.
And let's just find out a little bit more about you and the business, and then we'll go into the journey part of it. So can you give us 2 words? One that describes you now and one that you would have used to describe yourself as a child?
I would say that I'm a doer now. When I was a kid, I was quite independent, kind of always yearned for, independence. So, and then being a pianist, you spend a lot of time alone, working alone. And I think probably a big part, of my tie with the instrument was building that and having that. Those are sort of the two words I would use, but they're both still there. So,
Nice.
The inner child is still there. And then the adult executing things in that independence is still very much so there. So,
yes, great. And, off of that, so what were you doing before you actually started the school? So just to reiterate, it's called Bronx School for Music, and you've been around for you said you're going on to 5 years.
on to 5 years, yeah.
Yes. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's amazing. And I'm just curious, what were you doing before you actually started?
So, the years before opening the music school, I was the executive director of a different community music school. And that was an opportunity for me to get my foot into the door of how the nonprofit business works, and to learn really a lot about community engagement and building a nonprofit organization from a small size to a larger size. And then with that experience, and over the course of those years, I was able to then apply a lot of what I learned here into building the program.
Wow, that's great. And since you've been in business, what's one of the highest highs that you've had, or one of the best moments?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think, seeing the joy on people's faces, maybe after a concert or after a community event, maybe celebrating the end of a year with your employees and your faculty, and then other community members, I think is the high. I think that's when you see your work really on display, and seeing, the emotions that children go through in their performances, and then the family's reactions to everything. It all just comes together in those moments. And you really only then realize what you're doing and what the extent of it is. Otherwise, throughout the year, we're grinding, working independently, because, music is a very independent world. So you don't always see the action, and it takes a long period of time to see a result. And when you get to those celebrations at the end of a school year, it just really helps, piece everything together in your mind of, wow, this is what everyone's been doing, and this is the impact that we've had.
Yes, that's great. And as the parent here too, I feel the same way too, to just see all of that come together at the end. And because we come in, we don't always see everybody, but when we get together as a community, you get to experience all of that. So I guess I'm adding my highest high of being.
Well, community is key, right?
Yes,
it's the
for
most
sure.
important thing.
Yes, and you're very great at that. And on the opposite end, what would you say is one of the not so good moments you've had?
Oh, there's a lot. I think whenever you're putting your feet into a new challenge, there's a lot of suffering that comes with it. There's a lot of unknown. A lot of times you're putting out more fires than you wish that you had to. So finding, a work-life balance within, being a startup business and a startup business founder, whether it's nonprofit or the for-profit world, in health and tech and whatever it could be. Toughest moments are really when you have to give your attention not just to what you're doing, but also to yourself.
Yes.
And finding the balance with that is really hard. And I think the biggest lows always come when you're, maybe putting too much focus and attention in one and not the other. Mm-hmm. And then trying to find the balance between it all is really the tricky part.
Yeah. And what do you think, if you could point out one thing that has made that more doable for you, balancing act?
Maybe my ex-girlfriend breaking up with me. As crazy as that sounds. Success rate of relationships for business founders is quite low, statistically speaking, just because, we have to be kind of selfish with our time, especially when it's a young, growing business. And there are lessons that they don't teach you later in life. No one really prepares you for any of these things. The only way you can learn from them is to really live them.
Right.
But I mean, that's an extreme example. But there's also, you see the toll that it takes just, on your body and on your mental health. And then, finding ways to give time for yourself is really key,
Yeah. And I think that's something we don't talk about enough, because even as a mom with a new business and a baby.
Yeah.
Well, she's my baby. She's 5. But I find it so difficult sometimes having to be a good mom and still be somebody who can get the business off the ground. So thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And to end this segment, can you recommend one book or one movie?
A book I read this year is called Fluke, and it's written by Brian Klaas. And it's sort of a social science book where he discusses, how everything that we do matters. We just may not necessarily see it in the moment. It could affect something that happens 100 years from now or 20 years from the moment that we do things. It can really change the course of your life, no matter how big or small the event is. And something that happened 100 years ago can be impacting, something that you're doing today. And I thought it was really fascinating for me to read, because I had a lot of sort of personal background that can relate to it in a way. And it's a good reminder for all of us to remember that we do have, I don't know if I want to say power, but we have the ability to really make a difference, even with small things.
Even with small things, yes. And that brings me nicely to our next question. Something in your childhood, you think, or the things you think that led you to where you are, because all those little things that we do, right? So thinking back on your childhood, what do you think are those little things that led you to being?
I think it wasn't necessarily in my choice and power to choose this thing. But the piano itself, I think, is major driver of a lot of things that have happened in my life. And I think that's why I'm here, creating a community around music and around instruments. They take you places, they introduce you to people, and then the journey that you go through with it. It's usually a really long one. It's not something that you pick up and do in a year, but it's really a lifelong journey that never ends. And that, the relationship with the instrument has impacted so many things, and things that I didn't realize until maybe many years later, which kind of why Fluke, the book, was really important for me to read this year and help me make a lot of sense out of things. Certain students of mine and even myself when I was younger, now who are 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, are starting to go off to music programs in the summers. They make friends, they meet people. Some of these friends that you meet, you end up having for the rest of your life because they stay in the music world, and you don't know what impact they might make on you in 20 years. You don't know how someone you meet after a performance or a concert might change your life 10 years later when you want to start a project and create something. So it's really amazing, when you can track back all of these little things that happen and find what the root of them really was. So,
and thinking on when you decided to start the business, do you remember that moment where you thought, this is what I'm going to do?
Yes. It was in September of 2020. Spent a weekend out with my friends on Long Island. And it was a period of time where I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. It was during the pandemic. I quit my old job a few months before I spent that weekend with my friends. And that weekend is, I think, responsible for the reason why we're sitting here right now. One of my really best friends, his name is Thomas Abo, and he's also the chair of the board of the school, telling me, if there's a time in your life to do this, it's now. And he always admired my passion about the ideas that I had and the things that I wanted to create. And he was really the one who pushed me, after spending a weekend with him and his wife, to just do it. you know?
Wow. And I'm really glad that you listened and you gave yourself that opportunity. I heard so much about self-reflection when you being a pianist, spending that time in 2020 and actually making such a decision when the world we were not even sure what was going to happen, but to still during that time to be able to say, this is what I'm going to do and to actually make it happen. And I know you opened in 2021.
2021, yeah.
Yes. Wow. That's such do you want to say anything else about that time?
You know, it was a crazy time. A lot of things that happened over the course of that year. I mean, I could probably write a book about my life, about just a lot of crazy things that I did, experiences I had in life. You know, there was a lot of fear driving everyone in the world. A lot of businesses shut down. A lot of people died, and a lot of kids were suffering at home. And people thought I was crazy in wanting to open this and to start this school. You know, people were telling me, oh, you're going to be a super spreader organization. You're going to get everyone sick. Someone's grandma might die because you do this. And I told them no one's going to get hurt in what we're doing. And people didn't want to believe me. People were really afraid of taking the risk, but I trusted my gut. I trusted the safety protocols that we took when, you know, opening a school a year into the pandemic when kids were still taking lessons on Zoom. I had kids coming back to see me for the first time in almost a year who had developed tics and anxiety that I've never seen. So being a place for them to maybe start stepping out and getting back to being comfortable in the world, I think is something that was truly amazing to see. Yeah, it was a journey for sure. But at the same time, the pandemic, I was speaking with one of my mentors, Robert Cordero, who's also a parent and community member of the Bronx School for Music. But, you know, the last year for me was a bit of a tricky year with just some personal things and business things. And, you know, he told me, you know, Phil, remember that we had a pandemic that forced us to stop working, that forced us to put everything on hold. And he told me, you know, you've had 5 years of just steady rising and constant work and nonstop work, and you haven't had a reset in a while. And the pandemic, for some, gave a good reset if they needed it, or maybe, you know, showed them things in life that they maybe didn't see before, whether that was in their personal relationships or in their jobs. You know, a lot of people quit their jobs, were forced to leave them. A lot of people had relationships that failed or that succeeded. So there were really two big kind of opposing forces, you know, those of success and those of disarray.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm just really thinking on what you just said, because one thing that stuck with me was when you said people say you were crazy, and maybe because of the timing, because probably people were closing things, and here you are opening. And I like how you said you saw that it would be a way to actually it's a way to help. For instance, a lot of kids were home and there was anxiety issues and all of that. So as long as you were able to do it in a responsible way, which you did, it was a good way to be able to help people to come back.
100%.
So, and when we speak to others as entrepreneurs, I think that is something we hear a lot, because not many people see the vision until it's there, right?
Or some people are too afraid to take the risk. And that's a big one. You know, fear is something that I've learned in life and in business is a big detractor for people to doing things. You know, and I think it's a series of maybe fortunate coincidences for me. You know, I don't have a family. I'm single. There's a time for me to take a risk. You know, it's been in the last 5 years. Not everyone has that luxury. That's something that people have to really consider when taking things like this, or maybe things that stop them from doing things.
Yes, and fear is definitely a big thing there. So thanks so much. And about the name of the school, how did you decide on the name?
Of course, I wanted it to be called Bronx, Bronx something. You know, we always call our schools of something, you know, and of is a possessive word that's related to the name of the institution. I wanted the name of the school to be more specific about exactly what it's doing. And that's, you go to a school for something. I didn't want the music school to be possessive of the Bronx. I wanted the Bronx to be, and the school to be specific to the children that it's serving. And that's why, the kids are coming to a school for music,
right,
to study music, not of music, right? When you look at the schools in other places, their name has to be more possessive over the institution because they have more competitors maybe, or they have a specific ideology that they want to become and be more possessive of. Whereas I just wanted it to be really laser focused on a specific impact.
Yeah. And that's a big distinction because I find myself sort of saying, So it's nice that by using the name, you're actually having us think about that.
And then
you say the name.
Yeah. And in the old worlds in Europe, in a lot of the Germanic languages, they call them Hochschule für Musik. So it's always FUR. So it's always for music. They don't say of music in those languages. And that's also where I got some inspiration behind the name, the gist of it.
Great. So let's move on to the building segment. So I know we talked about the biggest, in a sense, we talked about the leap, taking a leap during COVID. So would you say that was the biggest one so far? And if yes, is there another one you would still like to just highlight?
I don't know if the beginning was the biggest leap for me. I actually had the most fun in the beginning. I'm still having fun, but I think just because of how time felt differently during the pandemic. You didn't feel this pressure and this need to do things quickly because you just knew that everything was just forced to be a little slower then. So psychologically, I was in a place where I had a lot of time. I had a lot to think, to work. I had a lot of motivation behind everything. Piecing the building blocks of everything together was really easier for me then. I think now the world has kind of returned back into hyperdrive, right? Especially New York is crazy in that regard. It's part of the thrill of living here. I think, once you have something established, the stakes are a lot higher. In the beginning, you have nothing to lose because you're just trying to prove a point. But once you've proven your point and you need to sustain what you've built, I think is the hardest part. So I think the biggest leap for us is getting from maybe Bronx School for Music version 1.0 to 2.0 or to 3.0 and figuring out, how we want to evolve the program and how to get the funding to do that. That's where it's really the hardest part. So I think now we're in this position where we've had so much success in proving to our supporters and community members that, we're needed. The proof is just in the numbers. And then, but growing beyond that, you face things like space limitations, have to, manage people better because you have more of them. And those are the things that are really hard to do.
Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication, but does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you. Whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website, www.cmeaccountingllc.com, or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. What have you learned throughout that has made it maybe a little easier?
First and foremost, you have to look within for a lot of answers. Everything is a reflection primarily of where you are. I think the better you are at growing within yourself and doing kind of your own work, having some kind of a spiritual program, and it's a very loose word. I don't mean necessarily, it could be religion for some people. It could be therapy for some people. It could be some way in which people hold themselves accountable. But having that is really one of the more crucial things, because the more you are working on yourself and kind of paying attention to that spiritual program, everything else around you is going to be succeeding more. your relationships with your friends, your family, all of that has an impact on the way that you run your business, or maybe the lack thereof also has an impact on the way that you're running your business. So being in tune with yourself and always making sure that you're in alignment and that the forces around you are also in alignment with what you're trying to achieve is really crucial. And then when you face situations with people or challenges, you just trust the process more. You become better at catching yourself, maybe not reacting in situations better. And you just become a better leader as a result of it.
Nice. And you said you have a team of about 25 people now?
Yeah. So it's about 18 teaching artists. So that they make up our faculty. And these are all professional musicians who perform and also teach. And then we have a high school internship program for local area children. So kids who are between 15 and 18, we hire as part-time administrative assistants and receptionists. Very grateful to the Dr. Lee McCormick Edwards Charitable Foundation who supports that program. And kids love a little bit of money, And when you can find the ones who like working in exchange for it and they understand the value behind that, that's really great, especially when you're doing it in a community of need and instilling that culture early on. It's really important because it gives them, a greater sense of freedom. They can buy themselves things. They can do something that they want. So it's empowering. And they also learn too, a lot. And then, a few of us teachers are also administrators. So of the faculty that we have, 2 of them help run the operations of the school with me and the board of directors.
How did you build that team? Because it sounds like you have, I know that you have amazing people here because my daughter, her name is Sierra, and you have one of your teachers. She's Kiera. Yeah. So Sierra absolutely loves going to Kiera's class, and she's so amazing with the kids. So I know from being part of the class that you have an amazing staff here. So how do you attract those people?
It's a lot of friends of friends. It's a lot of recommendations that I get from faculty or people that I've met. A good portion of the people who work for me are also, and for the school, are just friends of mine who I've had over the last 10 years. And then the people you employ also have friends who also need work. And the initial group of teachers that I had who, worked here in the very beginning were all close friends of mine who were all looking for more work and who are all interested in this venture and to help building the base of the school. But then there's times where you have to venture a little bit out of just word of mouth and connecting. So, the standard LinkedIn's or what are they? I haven't had to hire someone in a while in one of these. Candid. Is that how you say it? Is it, or can, there's all those hiring platforms online, but ultimately, making friendships, connecting, going to concerts, meeting, younger artists. It's always important to be, networking and keeping in touch with people. It's a lot of work and a lot of effort that needs to be put in.
Yeah. And for you as the founder, now having to, people rely on you for a salary. What is the switch that happens there?
Oh, it's stressful. Well, that's where the stakes get higher, right? When the stakes get higher, you're not just taking care of yourself, but you're taking care of a lot of people. And, people always come at you for wanting more and needing more. And there's only so much that you can do in certain situations or phases of running your business. And that becomes frustrating. And it's just something that's always in the back of your mind. For me, for example, I don't always think, I have to take care of myself too, right? But then you're taking care of a lot of other people and inflation's crazy. The cost of living in New York is really high. Sometimes people have to leave you because they get other opportunities just to help themselves more. And then also kind of balancing situations like that is also always really hard. Part of the challenge of building an organization in the Bronx like this is, a lot of the artists and musicians live in Manhattan or in Brooklyn. So pulling in talent is tricky because there's a lot of travel time. Even though on the map it doesn't look far, it takes a lot of time to get to and from here. And that's something that makes staffing and finding people harder. But, yeah, it's always a challenge having everyone, on the back of your mind. It's something that you never really turn off.
Right. I can only imagine. And it's something I will have to be dealing with soon. So I always love to learn from others who have
Sure.
gone before me. And in terms of funding, I know that you make this quite affordable for families.
Yeah.
So how is that possible? I know you've mentioned that you have a few organizations that have assisted in that area.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on that?
So, 50% or more of our budget comes from individual contributions, government grants, and foundation grants. So, the whole reason we were able to start up in the very beginning was just friendships that I had made over, a decade. And when I had an idea and a vision and a project that I really cared about, and I reached out to the philanthropists in my network and family and friends, the support came pouring in. And I would say, I'm lucky to have gotten the support that I have. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize the power of the support that I would get until I started this. Mm. But one of my professors always said, his name is Paul Shenley, he would always encourage us artists to go and meet people after our performances. And a lot of times artists, after they play a concert, they're really stuck in their head. They don't want to talk. They're just sitting there and reanalyzing all of their mistakes. Mm-hmm. Whereas he's like, no, go out there and talk to people. I know it's not a skill that everyone has. And mm-hmm. he himself always said that it wasn't easy for him. Mm-hmm. But that it's really important to go out and to engage with people, because you never know how they'll help you.
Yes.
And then sustaining those relationships is also a lot of effort work as well. So in our first year, I had not even in our first year, this was before we even opened, I got the support of my family, a particular couple who I invited to come here to tour the school, and it was Jeffrey Gates and Michael Moran. I cooked them dinner, showed them what I wanted to create here, and then they gave me commitment, to help get the organization off the ground. And sort of once you have that and that it's there, mm-hmm. It gives you the confidence to just start driving. And if you're a fast driver, mm-hmm. You can get a lot done.
Yeah. And to be able to get that kind of support, even before you started. And I think there's something about when somebody believes in what you could see it. Not everybody else can. And when somebody comes in and they can actually see what you're trying to do, and to actually support it, I'm sure that makes a huge difference. Like
it makes a huge difference. It gives you a lot of confidence for sure.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm glad you have those people in your life. That's great. And before we end this segment, as an accountant, I like to always ask about the finances in terms of how do you manage that? If you have somebody that you brought in, when did you decide to do that?
Sure.
Just to add, I like to do that because when we start businesses, we do a lot by ourselves.
Yeah.
And we don't always know when to bring people in.
Sure.
So I just always love to touch on that. So if you don't mind.
Well, this is a great question. And you're going to like my answers to this question. Okay. Aside from maybe the, financial support that I was getting from various philanthropists and individuals, the first person I called was my accountant. Right. First person. And my greatest or my biggest piece of advice to anyone starting a business, the first person you call is an accountant. You have to learn how to set up the, legal structure of the business, depending on the type of corporation you want it to be, or if you want it to be, an individual practice of some sort. Those are all key things. And then accountants know everyone, everything from your insurance brokers to your web and tech developers. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've got it all. It's really amazing.
Well, that is true.
So I actually give a lot of credit to my accountant for kind of guiding me the process of establishing the infrastructure needed on the financial side. I have a little bit of a background in accounting. Was essentially an understudy of a CPA for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So I had I guess a bit of an edge over maybe a lot of people in knowing how to use accounting software, how to set up chart of accounts, how to reconcile all of your accounts. So I will say I had a leg up there. Mm-hmm. And that was something that I learned in the earlier stages of my career. And then you always have questions about things. So your accountant is the one that I think you're pestering the most. And, a lot of times I'll call him and he'll be like, Phil, I got a deadline in 3 days. I swear I'll answer your questions 3 days from now. But that was instrumental. It was really instrumental. And then, learning bookkeeping skills, I think, is something that someone going into business absolutely needs to learn how to do. And over time, I've kind of passed that work aside. I actually taught one of my high school interns, who's now a freshman in college, how to do all of my bookkeeping, how to reconcile all of our accounts, how to create all of our invoices and track our payments. And then I feel like her name is Tamia. Tamia is awesome. She's a really smart girl. She also went to Horace Mann. And I feel like one day if she's going to want to start her business, I know she's going to be calling me and asking me a lot of questions, which, I'm hoping I get those calls one day. But getting a young kid kind of the exposure to that element of the business and to doing that work gives them a leg up tremendously in the future of when they want to start things.
Yeah. And support is so key.
Yeah.
So to be able to, even though you can do it, to be able to free up that time and to actually pass it on to somebody else and to allow them now to learn.
Yeah. I mean, that's
great.
really important. Generosity is a really big thing. I wear this thing around my neck because it's a symbol for generosity and it's 6 little mantras for it. My professor, Paul Shenley, when I was a student, this was back 2009, 2010. So we had just kind of gone through the financial crisis that took place in 2008 and 2009. And that was a tough time for my family. A lot of people at those times lost their homes. I was a student in school and he invited me to go to his summer program. And then he promoted me sort of to become he calls his house manager. So you're learning how to work with the budget, how to shop for supplies, how to sort of be a leader amongst a group of artists. And, he would always be really generous to me. He would take me to dinner. I always asked if I could pay. He said no. And, I asked him, well, how can I repay you? And, what he said to me was, just whatever I'm doing for you, just do it for your students in the future. So, I think I feel an obligation for the generosity that you receive. Generosity is always reciprocated if it's in the hands of the right people. And that's, I think, something that everyone needs to really always be highly aware of is give without expectation, but it will come back to you if you do.
Yes. And you definitely honored that, what he told you. And it brings me back to the book you mentioned, all those little things.
Yeah.
And you continue to do that. And even when you mention the interns, what are you providing for them now and the impact you're having on them now in the future, that will just continue to grow.
Yeah. It's a cycle. It's always a cycle.
So, wow. Thanks for being that person. And, so we're going to move on now to our Blossom segment.
Okay.
Here we really just have one question. What does success mean to you?
It's a really open-ended word for a lot of people. I think it has to do a lot with personal fulfillment. A lot of people put money and material and things as an indicator of success, which they're not always entirely wrong, but I don't think it's everything. I think I've seen people who have had extraordinary wealth and tremendous success in their businesses from a financial standpoint still not have everything that they want in life. That could be things like children, families, relationships, friendships. So I think it's about finding a balance between loving yourself for everything that you've done. That's a really hard one. And if you're successful, if your self-love tank is high, and not from a narcissistic standpoint, but from just a gratitude standpoint, and everything else, I think after that becomes a bonus. So if you're loving what you're doing and you're happy with what you have around you, then that's success. But it's many things, not just one.
Definitely agree with that. Great. Thanks for sharing that. And that takes us to our closeout segment. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Likewise. And I just wanted to know, as we close out, if there are 3 practical tips you'd like to share with someone maybe trying to get into the same business as you, or just anyone looking to get into business in general. And we can think of those who are about to get started or even those who are already on the journey and they just need that little push to keep going.
Always work on yourself. You're not perfect. You don't know everything. And you have to be open to learning, and to be you have to be open to making mistakes as well. Be generous with your time. That's a hard one that I've learned. And if you're not willing to wear every hat, then starting a business is not for you. You have to be able to do everything from all of some people like to use these terms, but the blue collar, white collar jobs, right? You have to be able to do everything from taking out the trash to cleaning up to, learning how to do an Excel sheet and run reports and all of these things. There's so many different things, but there's no job that's bigger or smaller than you. You are the problem if you see it that way. Yeah. So I don't know if I think you said 2 or 3 things, right? I can go on about this for hours. Make a lot of friends in life. That's another one. And don't judge people. Just learn from them. To the more perspectives you can get, the better you become. So that's a big one.
I love all of those. And I'm always learning. So thanks for teaching me and everybody else listening and watching us as well. We really do appreciate that. So can you just tell us where listeners and our viewers can reach you?
You can reach me at Philip Kwoka on Instagram. So at Philip Kwoka. You can also send me an email to philip.kwoka@bronxschoolformusic.org. And that's Philip with 1 L, not 2.
Yes, I have a brother named Philip, but it's always 1 L or 2 L's. I don't know.
Yeah, every language, every culture. Some do 2 L's and 2 P's and an E at the end. Some spell it with an F at the end,
Yes.
But ultimately it's a Greek name, that goes back to Phil is, the love of learning and then, or just the love of something. And Ip is a horse. So Philip means lover of horses.
Oh.
Which is an interesting name.
So is this Philip a lover of horses?
That's a great question. I think they're majestic creatures. They were never my thing, though. But I do regret not learning how to horseback ride when I had the opportunity to. So
well, maybe you might still get to do that.
If it comes up, I'll take it. I'll take it into consideration.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. Well, thank you for being here with us, and we look forward to having you on our next episode. Have a good one.
A quick note before we wrap up. The insights and experiences shared by our guests are their own. We love creating space for real conversations about business and growth, and everyone's journey is unique. Therefore, this podcast is for informational and inspirational purposes only. It is not meant to replace legal, financial, or other professional advice. So, we encourage you to take what's useful, do your own due diligence, and build what works best for you.
Thanks for listening to Begin, Build, Blossom Your Business Journey. We hope today's conversation gave you the insights and inspiration you need to move forward on your own path. Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. Do you have feedback? We'd love to hear from you at podcast@cmeaccountingllc.com. Join us again next week for a new episode.